Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the bread mix the basket coloring activity right here. As you see right here, is I went ahead and drew right here is a picture image. It's like you say my mom and I, of course, shopping at the grocery store. It is, and then I'll be drawn right here as like example right here of a shopping cart. And basically, the whole story goes by is that whenever we were out shopping, that one time is like back in August it was that we were shopping around, and then all of a sudden we were going towards the bread aisle, and then what happened was that when we were going towards the bread aisle, that we were looking at the bread, the different kinds of bread it was, and my mom asked me, of course, to find the cheapest one that there was. It's like you're talking about. It's like we were in the bread aisle, and I show her, of course, since we were shopping at the grocery store, of course, inside the side of town where I'm at, where I live, and then of course that talking about is that you have right here. You got right here is a shopping cart, but she asked me for which to find out where the cheapest bread is, and then I pointed out the cheapest bread, of course, was 94 cents. It was, which about nowadays it seems like that the cheapest loaf, of course, you can buy about nowadays would be about 94 cents or 89 cents. It is for like maybe say the off-brand stuff, but the off-brand bread. But you have right here is a shopping cart, and let's just say at the shopping cart, we're about right here it is. You have pushing to say the shopping cart, and knowing about that we would be pushing the shopping cart around, and then getting a cart full of stuff, and then all of a sudden it was like that she would ask. It's like if you try to find the cheapest loaf, and then I would point out one on the bottom shelf. It was a loaf of bread on the bottom shelf that would have been stacked about right here. It is. She picked up a loaf, and of course that there was she would pick up the loaf from the back side, and then about maybe 5 pieces of bread just came out. It's like came out from the bottom. It was like you got at least 4 or 5 slices of bread, of course, on the floor. It is, and knowing about with anybody probably think about that the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you, of course, of knowing about that. If you had like what you call like a bread, if it's wheat bread or you say bunny bread or any type of bread like that, is talking about that she would pick it up, and then yeah, she would pick it up, and then all of a sudden about the whole bag would just come undone right whenever she picked it up, and she was like, oh man, jeez, and knowing about that. The whole part about it, and I even told her, I'm like, hey, if I think that would have been kind of funny if I would have gotten that, of course, on tape. It's like if I would have gotten that, gotten a picture of that, and just knowing about anybody here just drawing it out, of course, is not that hard, but just understanding about the fact about you go out shopping and that you don't expect, of course, for something to come undone. It is so far as talking about. It's like if you were to pick up a case of soda, and then all of a sudden about 4 cans just start come out of the box. It is like come out of the case, and like talking about. I was not expecting that, but anyway, that they have right here is I'll go ahead and draw right here. Example right here is like if this was my mom and I, of course, say at the grocery store, but basically that that it was like that yeah that with the experience, of course, of going to the grocery store, it is that my mom and I would be together, say at the grocery store, and then we would be in the bread aisle, and then all of a sudden it was like trying to find the cheapest bread. That it's like find the cheapest bread on the shelves. It was, and knowing about with me though that I'm like, well, I'm fine on bread, and then like with most of us, it's like go to the grocery store, and you go to the grocery store maybe with the list. It is the things that maybe that you need for later on. It is, and it's like you just want to go in there, go to the aisle, and just look at the bread. It is, and knowing about that, you don't expect it to come out of the package. It is, and then just get all over the floor. But anyway, from the most embarrassing times, of course, that's happened to you for going to the grocery store, of knowing about if anybody has the experience of maybe that if your pants fell down, or if it's the fact that you get a shopping cart and the next thing you know it, that with the shopping cart, that the bottom rack or whatever falls down or something like that. But Arnett is talking about the story right here. Is talking about with a loaf of bread, that the loaf of bread that would come undone. It is. And whenever my mom would pick it up off the shelf right here, and it's like it would all just come out of the pack, out of the package it was. And anybody probably think about loaf, it's like out of the wrapping, and it was like just the way it happened. It's like you pick it up and all of a sudden, and then knowing about that, like, hey, it was already unwrapped, and then she would pick up the pieces and of course give it to somebody who was working there. It was, and knowing about that. Of course, it's like with say both your mom and dad it was, but other than that, you have right here is talking about is that with the loaf of bread right here, that for 94 cents, it's talking about talk about the story about 94 cents it was, and basically that we could probably think about is like the things that cost about 94 cents, and it may have been 90 cents, 6 cents, but let's just go ahead and say 94 cents. And then this kind of reminds me of maybe a little bit of the year 1994, that whenever I go grocery shopping, of course with my mom, that remember being in the shopping cart and being able to ride on the bottom of the shopping cart while she did her shopping. I would get underneath there and want to ride underneath, but of course I'm too big to do that now. But anyway, need an extra large shopping cart for that. But anyway, that you have right here is you got the shopping cart, and knowing about that is when she picked out another loaf of bread it was, and knowing about that it happens to where that you pick up a loaf of bread off the shelf it is, and then all of a sudden the pieces, of course, for whatever that was in the package it is, if it's a package of donuts or something like that, and then it just comes out, of course, of the package it is. But on the other hand, too, the way it happened, though, that there was still pieces of bread, of course, left inside the packaging it was. So I go ahead and draw that. Go ahead and draw that right here. But anyway, go ahead and draw. See here. But knowing about that, you have a little bit of bread sample. It's like a little bit of bread right there. It was just a little bit of bread left inside the package, but it was like you go pick up a loaf of bread it was, off the shelves, and all of a sudden it just all started coming out. About 4 or 5 pieces just came out of the package, and then it was like that the way it happened. It was like I didn't expect that, and knowing about okay, well I'll go ahead and get myself another loaf, and but anyway that. If it's all in the matter of the fact about if it's a gotcha, it's like talking about with gotcha. It's the price. It's like the price is like talking about right here. It's like talking about right here. It's like if we say turn a calculator on, is talking about if we 94 cents it is. For 94 cents, like for 94 cents, 94 cents. Let's see. Anyway. Battery may be wearing out on the calculator, but anyway, that if you take that and multiply that times 2 it is, and more likely you may be talking about is like that won't charge you. And I was also thinking about that well, since the bread came out of the package, that more likely it's like keep one slice of bread, of course, from there, knowing about right here. It's like you have right here is like on the grocery list. You got right here milk and eggs, and of course with cheese and frozen dinner, and of course with bath products. And I don't even know how old that grocery list is, but on here too, we can also think about is the fact about that whenever you picked up the loaf of bread it is, did you notice about maybe how soft it was, or since it more likely it was the cheapest brand there was? Because if I can remember right, that the prices of the bread were ranged to about maybe $1, I think $1.58, something like that, on the top shelves, and $1.58 and to about $1.89, I think, on the top. About $1.89. They got a little bit expensive as you went down. Of course, is as you went up, but there was a loaf right there on the bottom of the shelf to where my mom picked it up and all just kind of came all undone. In a lot of ways, it was like I can come on now. Like, I'm just trying to pick up a loaf of bread. But I'm sure anybody could probably think about that. With anybody, it was like you talk about it, it's like a joke. It is knowing about that the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you, of course, at the grocery store. It is like with me though that I was telling, of course, my mom about at the time about whenever I went into a Walmart store, and all of a sudden it was like I was looking at something, and all of a sudden the bottom of the box, of course, was open, and so whenever I tilted it, sideways, it was that the pieces, of course, for I think it was an entertainment, like a little desktop, say entertainment center, something like that, some type of bookshelf or something like that. That was back there in like what you call like the wood and your furniture, your fixtures, and aisle it was. And so I was looking at it, and whenever I tilted sideways, tilted right side up, I think it was, that the pieces came out of the box. And somebody there that of course that was asking me if I was alright, but somebody who was working there, of course, they didn't say anything. Well, call security, because it's like you were not supposed to do that. Well, that's against the rule. Hey, that's called. It's like, hey, it was already open. But anyway, that you have right here is somebody is a good example right here is of say my mom, of course, and then right here is you have right here is that knowing about with the is like with the details I went ahead and drew right here is like for the floor it is, but talk about your experience about when for 94 cents it is, and with 94 cents at half the time we were like wondering about with 94 cents, it's like what can you get for 94 cents, and anybody probably think about, yeah, you can get yourself a hamburger over at McDonald's it is, but on the other hand too, that knowing about is like talk about is like for the bread that makes the basket it is, just grab another loaf, huh? And then but on the other hand that I talk about, yeah, where does a loaf usually go if it's been taken out of the package it is? Do they repackage it, or do they just throw it away or whatever? But on the other hand too, that knowing about maybe the amount of slices, of course, that comes out of the package it is, of knowing about the fact about did the price drop down to about maybe 4 or 5%, since the package was already open. It was, and knowing about it's like that, yeah, I'm not the type of person who wants to eat stale bread. It's like if we're not talking about a story about toast or anything like that, about toast or something like that, it's like talk about with stale bread. But on the other hand too, that knowing about if you were to grab a slice, grab a loaf of bread off the shelves it is, and then the next thing you know, it's like that the bottom part, the front part of it, for where it was supposed to be tied was open, and so all the bread just came out. And knowing about the fact about that it's like the loaf came out and the bread pieces of the bread came out, and like if we would talk about maybe a package of donuts, or if it was related to any cinnamon rolls or anything like that came in the package, and that knowing about like, and don't lose your marbles yet. But other than that, like talking about right here, anybody maybe think about that, it's like details right here. Go ahead and draw a me it is, and knowing about that that just the way it is. It's like you find something that's the cheapest price, and then the next thing you know, it's like you don't expect, of course, for there to be what you call maybe a heavy weight that's on the bottom that's going to maybe pop you in the toe or something like that. But knowing about with me though that the things that of course that maybe we experience whenever we're at the grocery store it is, and that knowing about with me though that maybe in the parking lot it is that we may experience is talking about that the things that you in order to be able to find a parking spot it is, and a couple of times that whenever I was at the grocery store earlier, that same store it was, is that I can remember that getting into talking to the person at the register, and then all of a sudden it was like ask them like, do you want cash back? A lot of times, if you're paying by a debit card, say Visa, is that it'll ask you if you want cash back, and then I think there's options say if you click yes, how much, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go into that. So I wind up having to re-swipe the card because of the fact about the transaction, of course, was canceled. But anyway, that talk about right here is like talking about is like somebody standing like this, and next thing you know it, they grab something off the shelf and they don't expect it to come out of the package it is. But on the other hand, to know about if anybody's like talking about it, it's like, yeah, maybe you can keep it for a sample to go ahead and try it before you buy it. But on the other hand, to knowing about it is like for the bread that makes the basket. So far as for what can go in the shopping cart, really is talking about is like for whatever that course that whatever we can work out for knowing about for how the bread can easily come off the shelf. It is so far as talking about is the bread makes the basket coloring activity.